Live now.
All right, do it.
So that should be live. One
All
second.
right,
Let's
cool.
see. Okay, we are live. Welcome
Awesome.
everybody back to the live stream. Apple event just ended. Me
We
and
got kicked off.
Benji Kaiser are here. Lots of difficulties technically, and Apple
Yeah.
kicked us off as well.
And we got kicked off by YouTube.
Even though I wanted to promote them, they were like, "Nah."
Well, I
can't
think it
do
was
that.
YouTube. I think
Yeah, it
YouTube
could
kicked
be.
us off.
Probably.
Yeah.
Well, bottom line is, some things got announced. I'm a little bit disappointed. Ben is super excited.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it.
You were hoping for the Mac Mini because that's more of your niche.
Yeah.
The two Mac Pros came out. So we have Mac Pro. We have M1 Pro.
Yeah.
And what's the other one?
M1 Max.
They did that on purpose. Everybody was like M1X, M2, and they're like, haha, M1 Pro and M1 Max. So the price point, let's just put that right in because I know everybody's gonna want that. So these are starting, the 16-inch starts at $2,499, so $2,500. And the 14-inch, they now have a 14-inch model, which is great. And these are 16:10 aspect ratio, which is fantastic. Starts at $1,999. Okay.
I can't click on the buy because so many people are probably
I'm sure it's going bananas. And then the Max, the M1 Max, you can top it out at around, I wouldn't configure it more than $3,800, and that gives you 64 gigs of RAM, unified RAM, 10 core CPU, 32 core GPU at 1 terabyte of SSD. So we're talking about almost a $4,000 MacBook Pro, as high as I would personally configure it. Now, if it were me, if somebody wanted to ask me, hey, Ben, which one would you buy? I would go ahead and buy the base model. I mean, it's just so expensive to go up to a $3,800 laptop. And if you ask me, some prosumers could be on the go and stuff like that. But I mean, I just think that's a lot of money, and you could get the same power out of a PC build, and then you could buy like a more budget friendly on the go 16-inch MacBook Pro. So that's kind of my 2 cents. We can talk through some more of this stuff. What are your thoughts, Lauri? I've been ranting.
Just to add to that, I'm just thinking, if you are maybe like the main goal for you is, let's say you're like a world-class DJ and you are doing on-the-go sound live events, and you
sound mixing.
Yeah, exactly. Or you're doing literally live shows like, I don't know, Martin Garrix, or I don't know, whoever's like the good DJs now. Like if they need a laptop, is there anything as powerful as the 16-inch MacBook Pro with the M1 Max chip though?
Yeah, and only time will tell, because obviously this discrete GPU is like nothing we've ever seen. So the only way to find out is getting them here in the studio, because we got all the charts. They're saying 16 times, 7 times, 3 times faster, all this different stuff. And but what they didn't show was actual faster in, say, like Adobe Premiere Pro, Photoshop, Adobe Auditions, DaVinci Resolve. So these are still not native apps. So I think that's a big question. People are going to wonder, hey, do they have native Apple apps yet for Adobe, for Affinity, for all these different tools, Autodesk, the whole Autodesk suite for 3D modeling. These are not native apps yet.
Yeah,
and so these apps are going to run faster, no doubt, because of the performance and the system on chip that they've put out. But we're still not native, so we're still going to have a lag through Rosetta because not everybody's using Final Cut. Not everybody's using Apple Photos, so that's where I'm like, I wish they would have spent more time. But I guess it's really not on them, right?
Yeah,
the app development's on the app developers. They have to make apps for Apple.
Yeah, exactly. So they're probably like showing how powerful this is and giving all the potential, because obviously they're showing that our stuff, if the software is utilized on our chip, look, this is what you can do. They're hoping that other software companies are just gonna go on the train and do the same thing, just optimize it for that chip now. I mean, Intel and AMD are probably going to think now, what are we going to do in terms of laptop market, because their chips are consuming so much more power.
Yes, that's the biggest benefit.
Because they can't go any better, because they're just the cooling properties. They can't just keep up with it. They can't just add more power to it, like Intel's done. Just push more power through it. We'll be fine. We can't do that anymore. They need to
Well, yeah,
figure
the
out a
benefit of
better
Apple
way.
is they own everything in the computer. They officially have taken over all production.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you're saying, CPU and GPU companies can't keep up with that because they don't have control over the other hardware elements in the computer.
Yeah. Yeah.
One thing that also, should I purchase a Mac Mini M1 for 3D animation modeling and video editing? That's a question for you. I just saw that pop up there, Lauri.
So Mac Mini M1 for 3D animation, modeling, and video editing. It also depends which video editing you're doing, Devang. If you're using DaVinci Resolve or Final Cut, you're going to be having probably quite a good time. If you are doing anything on Premiere Pro, and you, probably for the same money, you can get some awesome PC stuff that's probably much more powerful, to be honest.
Yeah.
So that's like the one thing that I am very disappointed actually to not see there, like the Mac Mini with those new chips. Obviously they're quite expensive, everything here now. Like the I'm just looking, like the lowest of the lowest what you can get is the 14-inch MacBook Pro, and it starts from £1,899. I think in the US it's $19.99, which is actually not fair, because the actual dollar and pound difference is more than $100 or £100. So if we did, let's just see, 1,099 USD to Great Britain.
Yeah. All right. While you're doing that, how I would sum up the event, Alan asks, the event was good. I think they did their best with the fact that, and Apple always does this. Let me throw this out there. Even at the last event when they launched the M1, they compared to what they were doing before, which is obvious, right? Like we should always compare our own models to our own models. I think that always has a little more integrity than comparing other models on the market to your model. But what they never say is they never say what generation they're comparing to. So for instance,
exactly.
They said they said 7. Oh wait, where was it? It was 13 times faster than the MacBook Pro 13-inch. They said that their new 14-inch model was 13 times faster than the MacBook Pro 13-inch. Intel. The problem with that is that was an 8th generation mobile CPU with like 4 cores. Okay, it's just a joke to compare that. Like what you should be comparing is the latest 11th gen to this new chip, which would be probably about twice as fast.
Here. I've got the one over here that they compared it to. This is the 8th gen one, and it's not
That's
good.
A
I'm not gonna lie.
5-year-old chip.
No,
it wasn't good when it came out.
Yeah, exactly. But even when they put it on the M1 in 2019 model I have, it was already old. I think 9th gen was already out then, but they put the old generation in, and like straight after they launched this one, Intel launched the 10th gen, and the 11th gen came out a little bit later, but still, that's like always the Apple graphs is a little bit like, take them with a grain of salt,
Yeah. Wait till they get in the hands of reviewers to make a decision on which model you buy, in my opinion. Because if you've waited this long, you can wait another month till we all get them and start testing them. Because that's where you're going to get real data. A lot of people will be asking. So for instance, Armin asked, should I get the Rogue Flow X13 or the 14-inch MacBook Pro? I'm going to run all those benchmarks when I can get them in, and we will see. I'm guessing that they're going to be pretty close, to be totally honest, especially in non-native apps like Premiere Pro, DaVinci Resolve, Photoshop. I could be wrong. But I'm guessing they're going to be pretty close. Now, where you're going to win out, and Lauri's been mentioning this, is you're going to have better battery life, better heat, better thermals, and no fan noise. So like if you're running a Ryzen chip, it's going to have tons of fan noise and thermals. So if you want a quiet laptop, then go for these new Mac Pros.
Yeah, that's interesting. So I'm just looking at the listing over here, just seeing like what else have they put on there. So I'm looking at the very like base model of the 14-inch MacBook Pro, and we can see that we can add the GPU cores, right?
Oh,
no, actually, so CPU can be, so the base model comes with 8 CPU cores, And then the next one up with 200 extra dollars, pounds, whatever
Yep.
currency, that gets us extra to. I'll make it a bit bigger so people can see. Whoa, see it a bit better, probably something like that. Let me see. How does it look over there? Yeah, there we go. So that gives us extra 2 CPU cores, but everything else is the same. And then, like, from then on is literally just adding GPU cores, which would be interesting to see, like, how much of a difference is in each, GPU cores, because
You can get the max in the 14-inch. That's interesting.
no, you can't.
Oh, are you on the 16? Yeah, you can. Look, you're on the 14, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, see, that's the max, M1 Max, 10 core.
you can get the max on the 14-inch as well. That is amazing.
Super interesting.
You are
I mean, it's going to be
absolutely
a $3,100 laptop USD.
Yeah.
It's not exactly
Ooh.
it's not exactly budget friendly.
No, that's true.
But the thing is, that's what you have to realize with Mac. We're no longer at budget friendly. Like, that's silly. Like, if you're trying to buy a budget friendly laptop, buy a MacBook Air and just don't do anything creative on it, because that's not where we're at in prices. Between inflation and technological developments, these are pro prices.
Pro prices for sure. But
yeah, I mean, I don't even buy these I wouldn't even buy these laptops.
Oh, no chance.
Like,
the only
like, my
reason
business is this.
Yeah, exactly. The only reason I would buy them is to make content and show you guys how good this is. And then after I'm done, I'd literally put it on the shelf and wait for something else to come on the studio to make another comparison. But I would, like, not use this because, I don't know, I don't have a wallet to support my wants like this.
Yeah, but think about it. Like, okay, these are prosumer level devices, right? So big companies are going to buy their employees these devices, no problem.
Yeah.
But, like, you think about it, like, I can build a PC, and we keep going back to this, Lauri, and I know people are going to might hate us for this because it's supposed to be us talking about the Apple event, but this is how do you make a purchasing decision? You can build out a PC build for less money, even with the scalper prices right now.
Yeah.
Like, with scalper prices, you can build out a more affordable PC build, buy a MacBook Air for your on-the-go life, unless you're somebody who's a prosumer making $30,000 a photo shoot and you need this performance on the go. Yeah. But people ask me all the time, should I buy a MacBook Pro? I'm like, no, you have no reason to buy a MacBook Pro. Don't waste your money. Like, buy thoughtfully. Like, don't buy for status. It's so cool to have the latest M1 Max. Of course it is. Like, that's awesome. But, like, think what your normal workflow is. Think how you use your laptop, and buy for your budget and for your needs. Don't buy for status. That's how you end up in trouble.
Yeah.
Agree or disagree?
True. Yeah, that's true. So I'm just looking. I definitely agree with you. I'm just thinking that for £2,500, you can definitely get a better CPU. They've added a lot of things on the GPU side. They're really pushing the GPU because you can see that actually most of the CPU is the same from the bottom one, which is 8 core, and then the first upgrade to 10 core is all the way the same to the maximum. Now, I'd like to see if there is an actual difference. Everything else is the same, like 16 core neural engine. So the CPU performance isn't massive. They're pushing really the graphics performance and really showing that, okay, come on,
which they should.
Yeah, they should because there is a massive graphics shortage in the world.
Deficit.
So exactly. Because obviously AMD and Nvidia can't provide enough graphics power to the world because there isn't enough graphics card for people to buy. So now Mac is really going for their road. Look, we can do our own GPUs as well. But it's interesting because Intel is just around the corner to launch their next generation of CPUs. And I'm just wondering if Apple just actually jumped the ship a little bit and did it a little bit before than they were supposed to do it. Because Intel's around the corner to new chip and GPU
Don't
as well.
discredit Intel.
I know. And there's going to be awesome stuff coming. I can't tell you much. Like and subscribe and you'll stay tuned. It's going to be mind blown, but I think Apple didn't want to fight with the attention of Intel's launch and Apple. Because usually Apple events are on Tuesdays. And this was on Monday. And they reckoned that it was supposed to be next week. But they did it a week early. So it's like, I wonder what's going on. But a lot of GPU power, so that's interesting.
I think it's important because the M1 was already super powerful.
It was. Yeah.
And so really there was no need for more CPU power. What we needed, because right there, Epic Records said, being an Apple technician, I recommend the M1 Air for basic computer users. And absolutely, that's what I tell all my friends. What should I buy? My MacBook Air, because you don't need any more CPU power than that if you're running Word docs and streaming your friends on the weekend, as in video conferencing. But the problem was the prosumers were missing GPU performance, which is why I wasn't recommending MacBook Pros to anybody. I haven't recommended a MacBook Pro to any decent prosumer in over a year because it wasn't enough.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. But I think it's interesting to see that. Now, another thing that we're going to see like upgrade here is that the minimum storage now is 512 gigabytes. That's like the base model now. It used to be 256 gigabytes, but now it's just it's upgraded to 512, which is good. But it's still a little bit much, I think, for what we're paying for all the other upgrades over here. But hey, the other thing is, like always with Apple things, they're going more and more to like you can't upgrade anything. Anything.
So buy it the way you want it because you can't upgrade after.
Yeah.
What would you do? Would you buy with 512 or 1 terabyte?
I would personally buy the 512 and literally not bother about anything else because it's so easy to add storage later. You can buy some M.2 storage, NVMe drives, get casings for that, get Thunderbolt drives. It's so much cheaper than this to pay 512 gigabytes for 1 terabyte of storage. Sorry, it's 512 gigabytes actually because we're already at 512. We're going to be paying another $200 to get extra 512, and then we're 1 terabytes. But the thing is, this time, that SSD storage is much faster than on the previous.
Yeah, that is
M1.
a benefit.
Because now this is like the end of, or like we're maxing out the PCIe Gen 4 bandwidth, and we're like the 7.4 gigabytes per second, 7,400 megabytes per second, which is very fast. SSDs. That's like as good as it can get on any of the Windows drives, like the Seagate FireCuda 530. We have, it's actually faster than anything that Samsung provides, so it's amazing.
Yeah, even amazing. The T7s are fast, and this is faster.
Oh yeah, much.
So
faster,
somebody asked, what was it? What do we think of the notch? Was one question?
Yeah.
Why? Yeah, go.
Notch. Okay. I honestly think it's people make it a big of a deal than it actually is.
Yeah, like on the phones.
Yeah, I think I don't see it as like a dip into the screen, but I see a dip past the notch, if that makes sense. People can see that the notch comes into the screen, but what I see is the screen going past and then the just notch being on the way. Yeah, exactly. So basically, we get like the top bar of all of our, stuff that's on the top of the usual screen, like your file and edit, view, history, bookmarks, and Apple logo. So now it's just like above the screen pretty much.
Yeah.
And then underneath the screen, we can just have the full screen utilized. So for me, it's not a big deal. But obviously, aesthetically, it would look better if it was just like, without a notch. What do you think? Notch or no notch?
I don't mind it. I'm not somebody who's like super obsessive and gets PO'd about stuff really easily. So, I mean, it's a design decision that gives me a larger screen. Basically, all it would take up is where your file, like Windows file and all that. And so it's like, it's not a big deal. Like it really isn't. And it gives you a bigger screen, which is nice.
Exactly.
Somebody asked, why did they remove the touch bar? Because it was garbage. That's why they removed it. In my opinion, it was a joke. Sorry if you like the touch bar. That was silly. The touch bar was a horrible design idea gone wrong. So they're back to normal keys, which we all use and understand how to use.
That's true.
Just put a hole punch. Yeah, that I agree with that. So the reason they didn't just put a hole punch, Darius, is because they have to make room for the speakers and the microphone, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, I think there might be some other sensors as well that they might want to put in there, like autofocus sensors and other stuff.
So that's why the notch is so big, because they have to have more than just like, if you look at your computer, you'll see these other two little holes next to the camera, and that's why it's not just like a little hole punch there. But that is pretty funny. Yeah. Okay, gaming. what do you think of? Or were you going to go on something else? Sorry.
Sorry, I just saw that there was a few other things that we mentioned.
Yeah, go for it.
Darius Jayan is saying the SN850 is fastest, I thought. Actually, the Fire Cuda now is the fastest. The Western Digital SN850 used to be the fastest. Then Kushgara is saying, where is the cute little box they call Mac Mini? So that is Mac Mini. I think
Lauri's heart is breaking.
I think they're gonna announce it, because why I want the Mac Mini so bad is I don't want the Apple display, I don't want the Apple keyboard, I don't want the Apple touch system, I don't want the Apple trackpad, I don't want the Apple battery. I want Mac Mini and the M1 chip. So the Mac Mini was like my way of getting like all I want without paying any extra. You know, I want to buy my own display. If I already have a display, I don't need an extra display. You know,
that's a good point. It's like balling on a budget for Apple.
Yeah. So I was hoping that the M1 would be there, but I think Apple wants people to buy these first. I don't know.
I agree with that.
I don't know what you think.
I agree with that.
They probably, yeah. But I know, guys, I'm sad as well. But they're going to launch it because there's a lot of renders. So if we go Mac Mini M1X leaks, then you can see there's a lot of like renders that showed the new Mac Mini, as you can see. Like
interesting.
There's a lot of Mac Mini, like lots of new renders. So I was expecting this to be there, you know. And everyone was saying that this is coming. Even like the Max Tech, you know, Max Yuriev and his brothers and sisters from his channel, they were saying that the M1 Mini, like the new M1X, whatever it is, Pro. It's not M1X. We call it M1X. It's not actually M1X. It's M1 Pro, M1 Max.
M1 Pro and M1 Max. Yeah, I agree with Darius. The Apple peripherals are a ripoff. I do agree with that because you only need so good of a display and a screen. Yeah, and that's why Lauri is saying he loves the Mac Mini so much. So especially if they're going to get these discrete chips in them, I mean, they're going to be amazing. You know, you don't need super high def monitors. The average person doesn't need that. And so if you can get the performance for a great price point, I mean, yeah, it's a great buy.
Yeah, because like on the MacBook Pros, you can't actually choose the screen. The screen is chosen for you. Like there isn't a choice of like Windows laptops. You can get 1080p or maybe high refresh rate, low refresh rate, and then, you know, whichever one you want. Let's say you're not gaming so much. So 144 refresh rate doesn't matter to you at all. So
yeah, which they got 120 now. So that was pretty cool. So for gamers, you know, somebody commented earlier, gamers, you know, what about gamers? So Apple's starting to look towards gaming a little bit with the higher refresh rate. But it really isn't their focus. Their focus is consumers, prosumers, and students, really.
Yeah. What else did you see launched that you're quite excited about? What about the battery life?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's cool because okay, so somebody asked earlier, Asus Republic of Gamer Flow X13 versus the 14-inch MacBook Pro. So what you're going to see there is in my review, I have a battery life on that laptop of about 13 hours streaming video, right? But then as soon as you go to edit video on the iGPU, you're going to have not that great of editing performance. Where with the new MacBook Pro, you're going to be able to get full GPU performance because you have this integrated SoC discrete GPU. And you're going to get probably the same battery life. You're probably going to get about 7 to 8 hours of battery life with a discrete GPU on, getting full rendering and playback performance in Premiere Pro. Whereas you wouldn't be able to get that out of the Ryzen 9 5900HS because you have to turn off the GPU to get good battery life, right? Yeah. So that's where Apple's going to kill it, is they're going to kill it with great battery life while using these discrete GPUs, cores. Yeah. That's the win.
And all Windows laptops have this. Whenever you unplug the laptop, they drop the performance. Not on the Mac, apparently. I want to see if this even works on the M1 Max. So even on the battery power, it can give you the full GPU and CPU power.
Exactly.
Which is insane. There's
and
no
it's going to be good.
Laptop.
It's going to be efficient.
Yeah.
And like they were saying, you're going to have great thermal performance. So I bet these chips are going to run at 60 degrees Celsius.
Yeah.
Like all bore.
Yeah, I mean, the M1 Mac Mini was running like, I mean, they were so quiet and so cool. So I'd love to see what this is. But there is more options now than before. So it's interesting to like, I'm the best bang for buck guy, and David actually asked a really good question there. Which chip level upgrade would you go for? I'm leaning towards the first upgrade to 10-core CPU, everything else base model for music production in my case. And I think you're absolutely right. If you look at the CPUs, the first upgrade will give you like a bit more cores on the CPU and then give you the same GPU. The rest of the upgrades is just GPU. When you're doing music production, you don't actually need any GPU power. So the lowest you can go is the best. But me as a video editor though, I'm just thinking I need both. You need as much of a GPU as good of a CPU you can get. So for video editing, what do you think is the best bang for buck upgrades?
Yeah, great question. So for video editing, if you're kind of balling on a budget, I would go 14-inch, and then I would get the highest. I'd get the highest chip you can get, and then what that puts you at about $3,300, right? And the reason I would do that is because if you want to get that same setup for the 16-inch model, you're going to be at $3,900. You're going to be at $3,900. So you can get the 14-inch and save $600, right?
Yeah.
That's if you want like the best performance out of this year's launch, right?
Yeah.
So keep in mind, you don't need more than 32 gigs unified, because 32 gigs unified is technically like 64 gigs ununified. So you don't need 64 gigs unified memory for video editing, in my personal opinion. Okay. But you're going to benefit from those GPU cores. Okay. And so with that in mind, get the 14-inch, get an external monitor, and you're going to want an external monitor anyway for video editing for more space. And you could buy a $100 external monitor, a cheap external monitor. You don't need super high quality. You just kind of, having your files and your clips over there.
Yeah.
And then you save yourself $600-700 versus getting the 16-inch, and it's more on the go friendly. So that's what I would do. If I was going to put my money into one of these, I'd get the 14-inch maxed out.
That's true. Okay, let me see.
But I'm not going to, I got a desktop PC that edits just fine.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So, that cost probably $1,600 for that PC build.
Yeah.
So that's where I keep coming back to. But if you need the on-the-go performance, these are great. But it's just don't get wow. Do your research, because there's options that are better priced. But those options are not Mac OS. So that's where Mac.
I'm just wondering, like, how does the unified memory work? Because obviously it's like one memory as it would work on an APU. You've got the same memory that goes for the CPU and GPU. But now with Apple chip, right?
Okay.
You've got the unified memory, and they said, what was it like? The memory was different as well on the chips, actually. The memory speed of the memory. I think they said that the M1 Pro was...
Yeah.
Was it 200?
Yeah. The M1 Pro is 200 gigs, and the M1 Max was 400 gigs.
Yeah, so it's 400 gigabits per second.
Yeah.
And now this is the same memory. Now I don't know exactly the PC GPU specs. Like how much is, for example, if you go any of the 30 series graphics cards from 3070 up, I think they have a very fast memory. I think it's a DDR6X RAM, which is video memory. That is super fast memory. I wonder how does it compare to this unified memory? Because Windows usually has much lower CPU memory, which is, I don't know, usual like 3200 megahertz or 3200, whatever, for the desktop, and then super fast for the GPU. Is this the same? Well, obviously, now with this unified memory, are they able to give us the GPU speed of memory on the CPU, or the CPU speed of memory on the GPU? Do you understand my question?
Yeah, I do. And really the question is, we don't know till we get it. We don't know till we test it in app. You know what I mean? So that's the thing is, like, for instance, forgive me if I butcher your name, but Pentelis says it can edit 8K. Well, yeah, I can edit 8K on Final Cut Pro, which is an app that Apple produces. If you put this on a Premiere Pro timeline or a DaVinci Resolve timeline, it's yet to be known what's possible. And so that's a great question. What he's asked, what Pentelis asked to Bainam, which is, what is his definition of basic video editing? Because basic video editing could be basic as in I'm just clipping clips, or basic video editing could mean 1080p, or basic video editing can mean 8K with just cutting clips. So that's a great question. What do you mean by basic video editing? Because if you're editing 1080p, you could edit that on a MacBook Pro M1 from last year. Like you don't need much GPU performance for 1080p these days. Yeah. But if basic video editing to you is 4K or 6K, then that's where we're talking about the GPU cores being really important.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the thing is, know what you're doing and know what specs you need. Go for it. Sorry, Lauri.
I just did like a quick Google. People can see it over here as well. So, for example, the memory in 3090, right? RTX 3090 is able to do almost 1000 gigabits per second. Right? So the apples, what looked like amazing spec 400 gigabits per second, is actually still more than twice as slow as like the GPU memory on the 3090.
Okay, let's have some fun here. How much is that scalped?
3090. Well,
yeah, let's have some fun. How much would it be to scalp a 39? Not scalp it, buy from a scalper, because everybody's complaining about scalpers right now. Yeah. So let's talk about a 3090. Let's talk about a basic Ryzen 9 5900X. Talk about 32 gigs of RAM, a motherboard, a case, right? Like, let's just do it real quick, because this will show you that prices are not as crazy as you think they are when you get down to brass taxes of, building a PC versus trying to buy a MacBook Pro. Yeah. The price of an RTX 3090 is 2,500 euro. That's what somebody just said. Okay. So there we go.
In the US, in the US it's a bit worse. It's about getting close to $3,000.
Yeah. So with that in mind, okay, yeah, that's we're comparing apples to apples here. But the real question is, okay, well then what's a 3060? How many megabytes per second or gigabytes per second can a 3060 or a 3070 do? So these are the questions you have to ask yourself when buying a PC. Don't just say, oh, look, Apple launched this new thing. They said this. That means it's obviously better than everything else on the market. Do good quality research, because I don't know these answers off the top of my head myself. Lauri's even here looking these up.
Yeah, I mean, these are crazy. I think the 3070 is 448 and the 3070 Ti,
okay,
it looks like it's 600.
Yeah. So, yep, go.
So I think like it looks like roughly the Apple's memory bandwidth speed is roughly like a 3070 speed, cool, which is still pretty amazing to have in the laptop.
Yes, and so that's the thing. That's the thing that you have to keep coming back to. What are your use cases? What do you want? Not what sounds the best, but what actually fits your day-to-day workflow. I never edit out of my office, ever. I have no use for a MacBook Pro with high performance.
Absolutely the same. Absolutely the same. So what I'm curious is, out of all of them, how good is the bare bones of that chip, right? So in order to get that, I'll have to cash out about almost $2,000 to get the bare bones of the new M1 Pro chip. And I'm just curious, that level of a performance, where does it slot in the PC market? Like, is it what is it? i9 with 3060? Is it i7 with 3070? I don't know.
Nobody knows. And that's the issue with buying off an event. And that's what I said earlier at the beginning of this stream. Don't buy yet. Wait till you get reviewers going through these and giving you real world benchmarks. Don't buy off an event. Buy in a month or two when you can see what these things actually do. They're not going to run out. Apple's produced millions of these units. And if they run out, well, you just have to wait a couple months or something. Like, I just would never, I just wouldn't buy one yet, personally. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm going to get one because I need to review it, but like, I'm not going to buy one for myself just because they said it was great. I want to see real world benchmarks before I say, push comes to shove, this is better than this. It's going
Yeah.
to be cooler. It's going to have better battery life. Those two things we know for sure. But how much actual real life performance we're going to get is still yet to be known.
Yeah, that's true. So, you're gonna
Yes,
get
I
one
agree,
in the
James.
studio.
100%.
So which one do you think you're gonna get into the studio for your benchmarks?
I'm going to buy the base model. I'm going to buy the base model 16-inch because
Why
that's
16
what
inch?
because I have a lot of 16-inch laptops around my studio that it can be
Okay, I
compared
see.
against.
Okay, I see.
And 16-inch models are more frequently have these larger GPUs and CPUs, so they make more sense for the comparisons.
Yeah.
I only have 2 or 3 14-inch laptops that have decent performance. The
Yeah.
Asus ROG Flow, the Swift X are the only two I haven't. Oh, and the G14 are the only two below 14-inch and below laptops that
Yeah.
are available with good performance right now.
Yeah.
So that's probably what I'll get.
Yeah. Very interesting. I would love to get a Mac Mini, but I can't. Oh,
I know, dude, it sucks. But yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to test it as soon as I can. My wife is pregnant, giving birth soon, so I don't even know. I'm hoping it can happen before that happens, because once that happens, I'll be out for a week or two.
it's funny because
Yeah.
both of our wives are like so pregnant right now.
Yes.
Like mine is the same. Like I've got a week to go. I've got all these deadlines of stuff coming out, and have to finish all before the babies come. Obviously,
Yeah,
Ben's,
yeah.
Ben's got a worse case because Ben's got 2 coming, not just one.
I got
I've
2.
one.
We got twins, so we're doubling our odds. We've got 2 right now, 2 coming. It's gonna be a cry fest, but it's so amazing. If y'all don't have children, considering children are amazing. They will test you to the max, but then also they are the most loving people you've ever experienced. It's incredible.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Behnam just said that Matti Hapoya, I'm not sure if you know this guy.
Yeah.
He just bought the max out 16-inch for $7,650.
That's just clickbait. He bought it. I'm sure he did, but that's just
yeah.
like so he could say he did it.
Yeah, but I think this guy has a little bit of like he just bought the Mac Pro and he spent like 16 something grand on it, and then I saw his video. Not to put shame on this guy, but it's always like whenever you buy these things, you have to like justify why you bought it and try to like show that why it makes sense that I bought this. And then I'm thinking, looking at it, thinking you didn't need it.
No,
you didn't need it. He spent about 50 grand on the Mac Pro, and then
50,
yeah, 50 grand on it, and then spent like all the rest of the editing he did on a laptop. Like he never used it.
Yeah, that's the thing. Exactly. Thank you, Lauri. Case in point, you're not going to use the potential of a $50,000 Mac Pro. You're not editing Marvel movies.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I edit unboxings half the time, and I'm hiring an editor, and I'll probably purchase a 3060 with a Ryzen 7 for my editor, and like that's like what, $1,500 maybe, and she or he will edit like a champ. No big deal.
Yeah, I've got an interesting PC coming in, actually pre-built, that you might be interested in. That is small,
cool,
but super powerful. It has an RTX 3070 in it, full featured.
What's the cost?
Less than $2 grand. I think it's 1,800 or something like that.
Gotcha.
Oh.
Yeah, but I could get a G15 with a 3070 for like $1,500, $1,600.
Yeah, but
I don't even have to buy her a screen or a keyboard or a mouse.
But is that the 3070 Max Q or full?
No, your regular 3070. Regular 3070.
So it pulls 220 watts.
Probably. Hey, I'm not paying her power bill.
No, it can't be. Laptop chips don't go that much.
No, they don't. You're right. The chips that are in laptops are different from the desktop GPUs. They have a different configuration.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
But actually, that's an interesting point. Like, how much is a laptop dedicated 3070 compared to a full-on 3070 desktop?
I've done this research before, and I
What?
forgot, so forgive me.
Uh,
Congrats
anyway,
to
what?
Andrews. Just bought the 14-inch. I hope you like it. Hope you like it. I would buy 14-inch. I'd buy a 14-inch.
Hello, people. People tuning in now, just as we're about to.
We're kind of rapping. We're
wrap
having
it up.
fun babbling.
fun.
I'm gonna repost some shorter clips of this, hopefully.
Yeah.
So you can catch the shorter clip replays. MacBook Air is the best bang for buck for most of us anyway. I agree.
Absolutely
I agree with
right.
that. Yeah.
If you need on the
that's
go,
so true.
if you don't
Yep.
need on the go, then Mac Mini. I'm always the Mac
Yes,
Mini guy.
I love that. That's such a great point.
Pushing the Mac Mini always.
Yeah.
But it's to get actually. If you look at it this way, the Mac Mini is about $650 now, and the MacBook Air, I think you can get it for $800, $900, something like that.
Yeah, you can get them.
Probably.
You can get them refurbished for like $850. My brother-in-law just bought one for like $850.
Exactly. And think about that. You're gonna get a screen and a keyboard, but they're proper good keyboard and screen as well with it. So full thing MacBook Air and the battery.
Yep.
That looks like a better deal actually than
That's a deal. Yeah.
Mac Mini.
Yeah. The one thing that Apple has going for them right now, and I'll say this again, is scalpers. Scalpers are making Apple Mac rich right now, because the problem is normally in a normal day, 2 years ago, you could buy a 3070 GPU for under $1,000, 3080 GPU for under $1,000. Now those are going for $2,500 to $3,000. So Apple is highly benefiting from the fact that you can't build a PC for a reasonable price point that is anticipating competing performance with these new models.
Yeah,
they're benefiting from that, I think.
Yeah. And the other reason why the price increase on these new M1 chips is because TSMC, who produces, well, actually ARM and TSMC, anyway, those who produce the chips for Apple, they raise their prices just because obviously system and everything. So like the end price, like us as consumers, the price is gonna reflect on us the most. You know, if they raise the prices as the original raw material, for about 5%, then for us it's not gonna be 5%. It's gonna be more than 5%, 15, something like that. Everyone wants to cut half, on the way. So we're going to be paying much more than that. So I think that is a little bit reflected on these prices, because Apple knows that, they're going to have to buy those actual silicon in to make this, but it is pro. It is pro. It's pro. It's pro.
It's pro.
What about
pro price?
What about the charging though? They mentioned
that's a
quick
great
charger.
point. The 50% quick charge.
That. Yeah,
that's a good point. So they said you can charge them to 50% in 30 minutes. So think about it. You can get 11 hours of battery life in 30 minutes. So if you're driving down the road, stop in at Starbucks, grab a coffee, and in 30 minutes you got another 11 hours. Say you're a passenger, of course. You're not driving a Tesla, on your computer.
Yeah, that's true. What about compared to Windows? Like, is there anything like that on Windows system?
There is, but not for this much power. So you can do a 50% charge on a Samsung Galaxy Book Pro 360, which I just reviewed, and that has a 21-hour battery life, so you get about 10 and a half hours, but you have no GPU performance. This discrete GPU is a big stinking deal. That's why I'm saying either buy a MacBook Air or buy one of the best MacBook Pros, because the in-between is not going to,
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
But we need to test them. And that's why we're all just like talking circles until we can get our hands on them.
It's true.
Because we don't know.
I mentioned like Matti Haupoja before and said, oh, why is he buying all this stuff? Well, actually, I know he's running a business like we are running a business on YouTube. And actually buying this in, making all the content, showing all the stuff, it's going to pay for itself eventually. And that's why we're buying these things in. It's not just because we'll enjoy this. I'm not sure about you, but like the most of the stuff that comes in, I would love to enjoy it for myself, but just because I'm doing it for a job, a lot of the stuff is just laying around just because to provide benchmarks for people to show that, look,
Yep.
Don't buy this. Buy this instead. And
Yep.
that's the cost of like providing, I don't know, good
Free
content
content.
value for people. Free content.
Yeah.
So I get why he would buy the $7,500 MacBook Pro, because he's gonna come out with it and make all these videos, and it's he only needs 3.5 million views on YouTube, and it's gonna pay for itself.
Yeah, which he can do easily. He's got a big channel.
Make a few videos.
So somebody asked if the M1X available on the 14-inch. Yes, if you go on the Apple website, if you see Lauri has it pulled up right now, you can get the M1X
14-inch. Yeah.
M1 Max on the 14-inch. So if you go to the website, you can find it. Can you show me where it is? Show him where it is, please, Lauri.
Where is it? Okay.
Right there. M1 Max. Apple.com. Buy M1 Max.
There we go.
Yep.
64 gigabytes of unified memory.
Yes.
Actually, I'm wondering if we ran the benchmarks, for example, Premiere Pro benchmark. I have seen personally a difference between 32 and 64 gigabytes.
For sure.
So when I'm doing my playback, for example, on some of the 6K plus stuff, I've seen like 48 gigabytes, sometimes even more, like 57 gigabytes used on a playback. So, how many people edit 8K on a laptop? But I think it's interesting because
you can't even watch 8K.
Yeah,
most people's laptop screens are 1080p. Like,
I think if you edit 8K, you have an 8K editing station. You don't do that on the go.
Because the thing is, here you go. Lauri made a great point. If you're a serious video editor, chances are you have kind of a home base, a setup. Like if you're doing this every single day, you don't just only have a laptop. You're going to break your neck eventually from doing this.
Yeah.
So like, so many opinions. So many opinions.
What about because obviously the unified memory here is CPU and GPU, right? So whenever we're reviewing I'm reviewing a PC, the GPU always has its own dedicated memory. But in here, it's included. So basically, let's say usual GPU is like 8 gigabytes of dedicated memory. So we could minus that actually from what we see on the CPU. But it's still better than what we see on the Windows side, because the software is much better utilized in how they use the unified memory.
Yes.
So it's still going to be better. The one thing that was a big bad side on the M1 chip, on the memory side, was that once the memory filled up, for example, on the 8 gigabyte model, once the 8 gigabytes filled up, what the M1 chip started to do is started writing some of the like temporary files onto the SSD, which started eating away the SSD lifetime super fast.
Yep.
So now we've got more memory. I definitely, buy as much memory as you can for your budget, and as better of a GPU and CPU, chip as you can, like Ben was saying, just because you can't upgrade that later.
Yep.
Get as much as you can for it, because the storage you can always have.
You can always do external drives for storage.
You can always do that.
So somebody posted here, Ben I don't say his name right, Benam. 8K is super useless. Even 4K is almost not that common. Most displays are 1080p and 1440. Exactly. When I upload my videos to YouTube, I shoot 6K because I like the dynamic range that comes with the sensor. But when I upload it, I edit on a 4K timeline and then upload, and half the time people are only watching it in 1080p. So that's why I'm like talking about, everybody's like, oh, you can edit 8K. I'm like, first of all, what camera do you own that edits 8K if you're buying a $2,400 laptop? If you're buying a $2,400 laptop, and you're editing 8K, that means your camera is like 20 grand. So you're not concerned about a $3,000 laptop if your camera is 20 grand. That's what we have to be thinking about.
What if he's purely a video editor, let's say working on a company or as a freelancer who doesn't actually own a camera? You can be a cameraman.
Lauri, you've your good points. It's a great point.
Interesting,
But
isn't it?
who is? Raise your hand if you are, because I'm not.
Yeah, I'm not. But I think even if you do that type of thing, you've got no problem, cashing out $7,500 on a laptop. I think if you do that type of editing.
Yeah.
So, yeah. What's the speed of the unified memory versus normal memory RAM?
Yeah, so 200 gigs per second on the 32 on the Pro, and then 400 gigs per second on the M1, right, Lauri?
Yeah.
And then what's the average DDR4
Let's
speed?
have a look. What is the DDR4? So that is unified with both of them, obviously. Let's say DDR4 memory bandwidth. Whoa. Okay. 3200 megahertz speed. Transfer rate is 25. Wow.
25 gigs per second. Yeah. So the unified RAM is that. This is exactly why I'm saying people are like, oh, I can't use 16 gigs of unified RAM. That's not enough. Well, it's unified RAM, which means in essence, it basically makes it 32 gigs of RAM automatically because it's so much faster and closer to the system that you don't need as much because it's going so freaking fast.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, that's the thing is, like, when you see 16, that means 32. When you see 32, that means 64. When you see 64, that means 128. Like, and I'm not saying exactly, but like it's faster because it's unified.
I'm just wondering, like, someone said that the Matti Haupoja paid what, $7,500? 76. There is not an option. What else did he buy? Like,
well, no, they were talking about the 16 inch. Go to the 16 inch. If you upgrade it to 64 gigs,
I'm on 14.
8 terabytes, all that crap, you can get it. So do you think I need 32 gigs? All pink. What's your use case? What is your use case? All pink. You're a video editor. What are you video editing? Are you editing a lot of motion graphics? Are you using 4K or 6K? What are you currently using? If it's working, don't upgrade, because why upgrade if it's working? That's my other question. I always ask people that. They're like, should I upgrade? I'm like, is it working, what you're currently using? Yeah, then no, don't upgrade. Because for me, I have a Ryzen 9 3900X and a 1660 Super and 64 gigs of RAM. 1080p and 4K. And what's the current computer you're using, All Pink? And I'm not going to upgrade. I mean, I'd eventually like a stronger dedicated GPU, but like, it's fast enough for what I do. Audio guy. I'm so curious what All Pink is currently using.
Yeah. I'm just looking at the specs here on the 16-inch, and I think he must have said the dollars in Canadian, because I know he's based in Canada, but like even at full on specced out, like as much as you can with everything on 16-inch, is just $6,000, 6.1. So he must have said Canadian, but
yeah, he is Canadian.
For $6,000. Someone was saying here before, Darius, for the same price you can purchase the Ryzen 5950X 16-core, amazing monster, 3090 and 128 gigabytes of RAM, which is interesting. Can you do that?
I don't know. I wasn't listening. To be honest, I wasn't listening. I love that line from Guardians of the Galaxy. It's so funny.
Yeah, Canadian dollar.
Yeah, okay.
I usually edit in 4K.
I'm using a 2015 MacBook Pro.
Paulus Kevin is saying, I usually edit in 4K 10-bit A7S3 codec. Which type do you think I need to buy? So 4K 10-bit, you can have it on H.265 or H.264, and also you can have it in 422 or 420. There's a massive difference in that. If you have 420, buy the cheapest stuff, that's fine. If it's 422 and H.265, then actually I'm interested if the new video codecs in the chip are able to play that back. Because that's the interesting thing. The Intel 11th gen, which, everyone says is like, whatever, chip, not a good chip that came out. One of the biggest upgrade on that chip was the Intel UHT 750 graphics on the iGPU. And that iGPU has a very, very rare like video codec or decoders inside. So basically, on DaVinci Resolve, you can put any H.265 files on it, and it has hardware acceleration, which is amazing. There is not a single other hardware on the planet that does that. Like, no NVIDIA, no AMD GPUs that can do that. So to have that on a little Intel iGPU is amazing. So imagine this little Intel like 11600K i5 plays back better footage than 3090.
I like this.
There's something in the works.
I like this. So I'm going to answer all Pink's question. First and foremost, if you're thinking between the MacBook Pro 2020 M1 and then the 14-inch model, there's not much of a price gap there. I think the MacBook Pro M1 from 2020 is probably like what, $1,500, $1,300. So if this computer is going to last you 5+ years, I would get the base model 14-inch, and that's going to be really awesome for 4K video editing, 1080p especially. But if you need to save the money, then I'd get the 2020 and just, roll with it, especially if you're editing on 1080p. Now, the second question I'm looking at comes from Jack Patmore. He's saying that he edits 6K B-RAW with some effects on a 3060 Ti, 64 gigs of RAM, and a 3900X. First of all, this system kicks my system's butt, right? He has a 3060 Ti. So I'm wondering why he wants to upgrade. And he says, I want an all-in-one solution where I can plug it into a monitor when I'm home and then use the laptop on the go. So my question is, do you want to edit footage on the go? And my question is why? Unless you're like, are you on site a lot? Like, are you like, hey, I'm going to Utah for the week and I have to edit when I'm in Utah? Or so that's what I'm curious about. Because you have a really solid system for editing. Like, that kicks the pants off of mine. And I shoot 6K B-RAW as well. So I'm curious, Jack, why you want to be on the go? Like, do you have to edit on the go? Because otherwise, just keep your MacBook Pro, keep your editing rig, and don't spend any money, because you don't need to upgrade that for parts unless you're seeing your timeline slow down. Like, are you seeing issues with editing? Like, is your timeline slowing down? Because I edit on 1/8 quality. I don't ever edit on full quality in my timeline. So
yeah.
End of the year. So I'm gonna have to wrap up here soon. I haven't eaten today, so I'm kind of hungry.
Oh no.
It's all good. I don't eat really every day, but it's fine.
Do you think the M1 Pro Max Mini will be available before the end of 2021? I think so. I would think so too.
I
think they're gonna release it. But I don't know what I think. Well, some part of me thinks that Apple 2 has a silicon shortage, and they need to decide which product in their line is going to get the first priority in the chips, right? And I think MacBook Pros are obviously the first choice, and then Mac Mini, because there's not that many people who are interested. Well, not as many people probably interested in the Mac Mini as there are people interested in
totally
the MacBook
agree.
Pros.
It's a very small market cap. Because people just like laptops. Yeah. And as far as Jack, you said you're a current graduate student. So, dude, I wouldn't spend the money. Like, if you're in school, I don't know if you're making money on projects yet, but I wouldn't. I mean, as far as I can tell, I know convenience is awesome, but dude, don't spend the money. Don't spend the money. I'm just seeing bro, so many people are in debt. Don't do it. Don't get yourself farther in debt. If you're not, then congrats. Dude, that's awesome. I'm super encouraged by you, but don't go into debt over this gear. I mean, you could lie to yourself and be like, oh, I'm going to make my money back. But will you really be super honest with yourself? I don't promote tech stuff because I just want everybody to buy everything. I promote tech because I want people to get the best deal for their money and not overpay or get the wrong stuff. So don't just buy it because it's new and fresh. Yeah. Don't really know
the base. There's an interesting question.
What's
Arthurava
up?
is saying the base model 14-inch
Okay.
also have 8 cores, which looks like it's the same as on the M1. Now, is the base model of the new Pro chip exactly the same as the M1? My thinking is I don't think it's the same. Because actually,
Okay, he's
Apple's...
saying, hold on. He's saying the base model for the 14-inch is 8 core. That's not true. The base model for the 14-inch is 10 core.
No,
You can
it's
only
8
get
core.
the
14-inch.
yeah, 14-inch. It's 10 core.
8-core CPU. Are you looking on
Where?
the...
Yeah, I'm looking on Apple's site.
It's an 8-core one here. Have you got the higher one selected? Because if you
Oh,
got the higher one selected, you can't go on the lower one.
bro, now I feel like a
But
silly person.
But
right.
the
You're right.
M1... No, but it's still an interesting question, because I know Apple says that the M1, the previous M1 chip, is 8 cores, but actually it's 4 performance cores and 4 efficiency cores. Now, I don't remember them saying on the M1 Pro how many efficiency cores are there. Did they?
No.
So that 8 core could be 6 performance cores and 2 efficiency cores.
True.
Which was some of the leaks that we saw before. So I don't know. Yeah, it says 6 and 4.
Okay, so the next question is, though, the 13-inch model. How many GPU cores do you have on the 13-inch model? 8 and 8. Okay, so there you go. So yeah, that's a great point. I don't know who made that point. Who made that point? Anyway, somebody did. But yeah, you have more GPU cores on the 14-inch model. So even if you get the 14-inch base model, you're getting almost double the GPU cores. So that's pretty worth it to go for the 14-inch over the 13-inch, because that's almost double.
Yeah. And James Robinson is saying the truth. On an architectural level, the Pro M1 chip silicon must be different. Yeah, it is. It's like bigger than the M1. There's more stuff on it. It's just different. So I guess it has more power than the M1. It must do. Otherwise, actually, I don't know.
Okay,
Interesting question.
I got a question.
I don't know.
I got a question for somebody. Rano Visuals, why do you feel awful about your 16-inch Intel MacBook Pro? Why? Like, is it not working for you? What are you doing that it's not working for? Because this is a question that really needs to be answered. Current MacBook Pro, make some cash and get an upgrade on the MacBook Pro. Fair enough. Fair enough. Selling both. Yeah, you could do that. You could sell both, possibly. Jack, sorry, it's like I'm jumping between questions here. And that would make sense. If it financially comes out where you're almost paying nothing to sell both computers and then go in, that could make sense. Yeah, stats and the prices. That's a good point. But going back to Rano Visuals, if you're still on the stream, why do you feel off about your 16-inch Intel? Like, what are you working on? Why isn't it good? Because if it's working, it's awesome. It's the best computer you've ever owned, right? Like, just because these are better doesn't make your computer bad. That's what I want to make sure. Yeah, it now makes no sense, Darius. But if he already owns it, that's my point. So if you already own a 16-inch Intel MacBook Pro and it works awesome, then that's great. Like, you have a great computer. I have a 2015 MacBook Pro. I never edit on it. It's a fantastic computer. I love it. It's great. So that's what we have to really think about. So, like, is it working? Don't have upgrade fever. Upgrade fever is silly.
Do you reckon the previous M1 devices are going to go down in price now? Do you think people who maybe were looking for the M1 devices previously, it might be interested and maybe worth time getting some now? Just because... Refurbished
will go down in price.
Yeah.
Refurbished models will come in because people are going to trade in their old models. That's what's going to happen. You see people trade in MacBook Pro M1s, and then they're going to go and upgrade. So look for refurbished. Refurbished will come down in price. But no, the older ones won't go down for their standard levels, just like the Intel ones never went down. You had to pay $1,700 for an Intel i7 when you can get a MacBook Pro M1 for $1,300.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. What's your final thoughts then to wrap this all up? a lot of stuff been announced. Like
Yeah.
we've seen a lot of graphs. Just from my side, I've seen a lot of graphs of 5x, 4x, 8x, whatever x better. But I don't know what it means. Like I can see cores on GPUs, which, you know, what does it translate to RTX 3000, for example? The CPUs we have are whatever, you know, 8 and 10 cores. How does that translate to the, you know, Intel-based or AMD-based stuff? It's also different because Apple stuff is now on ARM-based, which uses much less electricity than, you know, our Intel and AMD-based stuff. So
which
there's
is
a
awesome.
lot of it's awesome, a lot of exciting things, but I don't know what it means yet.
Yeah. I think the real question is, are you trying to save the whales? If you personally are trying to save the whales, then you should definitely buy this product. If you think and believe that buying this product is better for electricity, and I'm being slightly facetious, you know, because yes, buying these products would be good, but like my power bill is going to be an extra, what, $1 or $2 a month because I'm running a PC rig versus having a MacBook Pro.
Yeah.
You know, so, and obviously I'm all for caring for the planet. You know, that's our duty. Like we've been called to that. But you know, if you're, that's why, yeah. My end thoughts are let them get in the hands of the viewers. Those are my closing thoughts. Truly. Yeah. Okay, Rano Visuals answered. So I'm curious. I recently spent the money on the Intel base model, 2,700 euros, and now I see it would have gotten more for even lesser money with today's release. If you get what I'm saying, I totally get what you're saying, Rano. That totally makes sense. But the real question is it working? And if it is, then you bought a great laptop. Now, if you see that you're gonna, oh man, I was gonna get into 3D modeling and motion graphics and 6K and 8K video editing, then yeah, like you should have waited. But if what you bought is working, though it's disappointing, you missed out on the next best thing, know that there's always going to be the next best thing. So don't beat yourself up if it's working and working well, that you missed the next best thing. Like I feel for you. Like that would crush me if I'm like, oh, I just bought this and now they launched this awesome product. That I know that sucks, but know that if it's working, then you got a laptop that's great and it will work well. And you have Intel time-tested chip in your computer that is time-tested to be very reliable. So anyway, I hope that gives you some encouragement, Rano. All right, so let's get these in the studio, test them out, and go from there. We could rant on forever because we love hanging out, but
oh yeah, it's been a while. It's been a while, but
I know
it's probably going to be a while till the next one as well, just because this baby's coming.
Yes, the babies. Got the babies on the way. Yeah,
the baby's on the way. So thanks everybody for watching and tuning in.
Yes.
Sorry about the technical difficulties if you tried to tune in on the previous live stream. That didn't go to plan, but we still had fun and it worked. So, you know, it's awesome. If you want to know any of the laptop performance, I highly recommend you go subscribe to Benji Kaiser's channel. I'm going to leave it linked after this stream. I'm going to leave it linked below if it's not there already. Go check him out. He is amazing at doing laptop reviews. Now, if you want to hear about the Mac Mini and how this is going to come out, subscribe to this channel because hopefully this is going to be released soon and I can get it in the studio and then, you know, work it out. But until then, I just came off with a very exciting email from some guys who do also small PCs, very powerful PCs. So there's one coming in very soon, hopefully delivered tomorrow or the day after. And stay tuned. I know I'm going to say it gets delivered, but then it takes like weeks until I've completed the benchmarks.
It's
and,
so
you know,
true. I'm always like, I'm getting it in. And then like a month later, it finally comes out.
Yeah, exactly.
Because we also have tons of videos in our queue. Like not only does it come in, but I think I have like 17 or 18 videos like waiting to come out. Plus all the videos I just filmed today, plus the videos I want to film next week. So I'm not holding out on you guys. There's so many videos to release. I literally have gone into like release mode where I'm releasing every single day just to get these out before the holidays. So
I know how you're feeling.
Yeah.
Like I'm thinking, okay, I need to get some of these stuff out just before the next gen comes. Like I was pushing my Intel 11th gen out because I know like the 12th gen is around the corner. So I thought,
yes,
I can't do it after that because there's no point.
No, it's silly. People are like, you're late, dummy.
Yeah, why
all the lovely YouTube lovers.
Anyway,
Actually,
exciting things are coming from Benji. and me.
And check
So
notice.
stay tuned. Thanks very much, guys, for watching. We're going to see you soon. And yeah, bye-bye. We're going to end the stream
Bye
now.
now.
Bye-bye.
Dude, thanks for